This case just crossed a line nobody expected. What started as Hollywood drama is now turning into a legal battle that could change harassment law, filmmaking, and online journalism forever. Lawyers are stunned, insiders are speaking out, and the next court move could flip everything overnight. Stay until the end, because what happens next might shock the entire industry. The moment the conversation begins, the atmosphere immediately feels heavier than a normal celebrity discussion because it is framed as something that could ripple far beyond one film, one set, or one summer of headlines, and instead stretch into the future of workplace culture, filmmaking, and public perception itself. And the host opens with a sense of disbelief, asking just how far this situation has escalated and whether anyone could have predicted that what began as whispers and rumors would turn into a legal storm filled with filings, debates, opinions, and endless speculation. And the guest returns to the conversation after stepping away for months, which adds a layer of anticipation because distance often brings clarity, and clarity often brings stronger reactions. And he explains that he paused from following the story while focusing on other professional work and only recently returned to review the legal filings in detail. And what he found left him stunned, overwhelmed, and struggling to understand how the narrative had grown so large and so complicated. And this reaction sets the emotional tone for everything that follows, because viewers sense that they are about to hear a perspective shaped not by daily headlines, but by stepping back and then diving in again all at once. And the host reinforces this by reminding the audience that the guest had remained mostly quiet publicly, which creates the impression that this reaction is fresh, unfiltered, and rooted in the documents themselves rather than the noise surrounding them. And this moment becomes the hook that pulls viewers deeper into the conversation because it signals that the story may be far more complicated than the surface-level drama suggests. And as the discussion unfolds, the guest begins describing the sheer volume of filings and the scale of the legal battle, which paints a picture of a situation that has grown far beyond what anyone initially expected. And the idea of thousands of pages of documents becomes symbolic of how quickly disputes can expand when they move from private conversations into public legal arenas. And the audience is invited to imagine the time, effort, and resources required to sustain a case of this magnitude. And this imagery builds suspense because it hints that something enormous is unfolding behind the scenes, even if the full picture has not yet been revealed. And the host leans into this tension by asking what parts of the case might survive the legal process and which might be dismissed, which creates a sense of anticipation about the future, because viewers naturally want to know what happens next. And the guest responds carefully, noting that judges often narrow cases before trial, and that this step can reshape the entire direction of a dispute. And this introduces uncertainty, which is one of the strongest tools for maintaining viewer engagement, because uncertainty encourages curiosity, and curiosity keeps audiences watching. And as the conversation continues, the focus shifts toward how narratives evolve in the public eye, and how quickly public opinion can change once headlines begin to circulate. And the guest reflects on the difference between legal arguments and public narratives, explaining that the two often move at different speeds, and sometimes in different directions. And this contrast becomes a key theme, because it reminds viewers that what is discussed online or in media coverage does not always match what is debated in courtrooms. And this idea adds depth to the conversation because it encourages viewers to think critically about how stories spread and how perception can shape reality long before evidence is fully examined. And the host adds another layer of intrigue by mentioning the role of modern media and the way digital platforms amplify every development, every rumor, and every new piece of information. And the conversation turns toward the growing influence of online commentary and how it can shape the trajectory of a story even before official decisions are made. And this moment connects the audience directly to the narrative because it acknowledges that viewers themselves are part of the ecosystem that keeps the story alive and evolving. And the guest continues by emphasizing the importance of evidence and the difference between speculation and proof. And this becomes a grounding force within the dramatic tone, because it reminds the audience that behind every headline, there is a structured process designed to examine facts carefully and thoroughly. And the host then shares his own experience of being drawn into the legal process, which adds a personal dimension that increases emotional investment and raises questions about journalism, content creation, and the changing definition of reporting in the digital age. And this part of the conversation becomes especially compelling because it highlights how the boundaries between traditional media and independent creators are shifting, and how legal frameworks are still adapting to these changes. And the guest responds by discussing the evolution of modern journalism and the challenges that come with new forms of communication. And this broadens the conversation beyond a single case and transforms it into a discussion about the future of storytelling and information sharing. And as the tension continues to build, the host returns to the central question of what happens next and whether the legal process will narrow the issues or allow them to move forward. And this repetition of the core question reinforces suspense because the answer remains uncertain, and the audience is left wondering which claims will remain and which might fade away as the case progresses. And the guest explains that predicting outcomes is always difficult because legal battles are influenced by evidence, context, and interpretation. And this uncertainty keeps the narrative open-ended, which is essential for maintaining engagement. And the conversation gradually transitions toward the broader implications of the case, including how it may influence future disputes, workplace dynamics, and public discussions about accountability and fairness. And this expansion of the topic gives the story a sense of scale and significance that extends beyond individual personalities and transforms it into a reflection on the evolving relationship between law, media, and culture. And the paragraph ends with a feeling of anticipation because the audience senses that this is only the beginning of a much larger story, and that future developments could reshape the narrative in ways that are impossible to predict at this stage.
As the discussion deepens, the tone shifts from initial shock into a more investigative rhythm where every idea feels like another layer being peeled back from a story that refuses to stay simple. And the host begins exploring how public perception and reputation can become as powerful as legal arguments, especially in a digital era where every headline travels faster than any court decision ever could. And this realization becomes a turning point because it reframes the entire situation as not just a legal case, but a narrative battle unfolding in real time across screens, timelines, and comment sections. And the guest explains that in high-profile disputes, the court of public opinion often moves at a completely different speed than the legal system. And this gap can create enormous tension because while lawyers gather evidence and judges evaluate arguments, the public is already forming opinions, choosing sides, and reshaping the story through discussion and reaction. And the host leans into this by asking how modern communication tools have transformed the way controversies unfold. And the guest responds by describing how digital messaging, social platforms, and online communities have changed the speed and scale of information sharing, creating an environment where every development is instantly amplified. And this amplification can create pressure, uncertainty, and confusion because narratives evolve before facts are fully examined. And the audience is reminded that this environment makes it harder than ever to separate speculation from reality, which adds a layer of suspense because viewers begin to wonder how much of the story is perception and how much is provable fact. And the conversation then turns toward the complexity of proving intent in a digital world, where communication happens constantly across multiple platforms. And the guest explains that establishing intent requires clear evidence, context, and careful interpretation. And this explanation becomes a key moment because it highlights how difficult it can be to transform online conversations into legal arguments. And the host shares how the experience of being pulled into the legal process personally changed his perspective on the situation, which adds emotional weight and reinforces the sense that the story continues to expand beyond its original boundaries. And this moment keeps viewers engaged because it demonstrates how quickly a single controversy can grow to involve new voices, new perspectives, and new challenges. And the guest reflects on the evolving definition of journalism and the role of independent creators in shaping modern narratives. And this idea resonates strongly because it connects the case to a broader cultural shift in how information is produced, consumed, and trusted. And the host emphasizes how audiences increasingly seek out alternative voices and independent commentary, which creates a sense that the media landscape itself is part of the story. And the conversation becomes more reflective as both speakers acknowledge that the legal system must navigate this changing environment while still maintaining fairness, due process, and a commitment to evidence. And this balance becomes a central theme because it underscores the challenge of adapting long-established legal frameworks to a rapidly evolving digital world. And the audience is encouraged to consider how future disputes might be shaped by these changes, and how the outcome of this case could influence the way similar conflicts are handled moving forward. And as the tension builds, the host returns to the idea that the next phase of the case could determine which claims remain and which fade away. And this uncertainty continues to fuel suspense because the outcome remains unknown. And the guest explains that judges often narrow the scope of complex cases to focus on the strongest arguments. And this process can dramatically reshape the narrative, which reinforces the feeling that the story is still unfolding. And the audience is left with a sense of anticipation, wondering how the next chapter will change the trajectory of the case and what new revelations might emerge as the legal process continues. And the paragraph closes with a sense that the situation remains fluid, unpredictable, and far from resolved, keeping viewers invested in what comes next. As the conversation moves further, the energy becomes more reflective and forward-looking as the focus shifts from what has already happened to what could happen next. And the host raises the question that has been quietly building in the background, which is how this entire situation might ultimately end and what lessons could emerge from the long and complicated journey. And the guest pauses before answering, which adds a moment of tension because the audience senses that this is where predictions begin, and predictions always carry uncertainty. And he explains that legal battles of this scale rarely end quickly and often move through phases of narrowing, clarifying, and redefining until the issues become more focused and easier for a court to evaluate. And this explanation reinforces the idea that the story is still evolving and that the next chapter may look very different from everything that has come before. And the host reflects on how public narratives often expect dramatic turning points, while the legal system moves slowly, carefully, and methodically. And this contrast becomes a powerful reminder that the timeline of public interest and the timeline of legal resolution rarely align. And the audience is encouraged to consider how patience and process shape outcomes in ways that may not be visible in daily headlines. And the guest continues by discussing the importance of fairness and due process, emphasizing that every claim must be evaluated through evidence, context, and legal standards. And this grounding moment balances the dramatic tone by reminding viewers that behind every headline is a structured system designed to reach careful conclusions. And the host returns to the idea that the case has grown into something larger than the individuals involved because it now sits at the intersection of law, media, reputation, and digital culture. And this observation expands the scope of the conversation once again, giving the story a sense of scale that extends beyond any single moment or event. And the guest agrees that high-profile disputes often become symbols of broader cultural conversations, and he suggests that the outcome of this case may influence how future disputes are perceived, discussed, and resolved. And this idea creates a sense of long-term significance that keeps viewers emotionally invested because it suggests that the story may leave a lasting
lasting impact, regardless of the final verdict. And the host then asks what advice might be given to anyone watching who is trying to understand the situation, and the guest responds by encouraging viewers to remain patient, thoughtful, and open to new information as the case develops. And this advice reinforces the theme that complex stories require time to unfold, and that early conclusions may change as more details emerge. And the conversation gradually shifts toward the emotional and financial toll of prolonged legal battles, and the host reflects on how years of litigation can affect everyone involved, while the guest emphasizes the importance of resolution, clarity, and closure. And this final stretch of the paragraph builds a sense of anticipation because the audience understands that the story is approaching a turning point, even if the destination remains uncertain. And the paragraph closes with a quiet reminder that the next developments could reshape the narrative in ways that no one can fully predict, keeping viewers engaged and ready for whatever comes next. As the conversation approaches its final stretch, the tone becomes more philosophical and reflective as both speakers step back to consider the wider implications of everything they have discussed, and the host emphasizes that what began as a single dispute has transformed into a conversation about reputation, storytelling, and the power of modern media. And this shift in perspective creates a feeling that the audience has traveled through multiple layers of the story, from initial shock to deeper analysis, and now toward a broader understanding of how such conflicts unfold in the public eye. And the guest explains that the legal system is designed to move carefully and deliberately, even when the public conversation moves quickly and emotionally. And this contrast highlights the tension between speed and accuracy, between narrative and evidence, and between perception and proof. And the host reflects on how audiences often crave immediate answers, while the legal process demands patience and careful evaluation. And this moment reinforces the idea that the story is still unfolding and that the most important decisions have yet to be made. And the guest adds that regardless of the outcome, the case has already sparked conversations about workplace dynamics, communication, and the evolving relationship between media and law. And this observation gives the story a sense of lasting impact that extends beyond the courtroom and into the broader cultural conversation. And the host then turns toward the audience and encourages viewers to remain engaged, thoughtful, and open to new developments as new details emerge, which creates a feeling of shared journey and shared curiosity that strengthens viewer connection and keeps them invested in the unfolding narrative. And the guest reiterates the importance of fairness, evidence, and due process, reminding viewers that the legal system exists to evaluate claims carefully and responsibly. And this grounding message balances the dramatic tone and ensures the conversation remains responsible and respectful while still maintaining suspense and intrigue. And the host closes by emphasizing that the story is far from over and that future developments could reshape the narrative in ways that no one can fully predict, keeping viewers engaged and ready for whatever comes next. As the discussion comes to a close, the biggest takeaway is the realization that this story has grown far beyond one disagreement and now sits at the crossroads of law, media, reputation, and the fast-moving world of online conversation. And while many questions remain unanswered, the conversation highlights how important it is for the legal process to move carefully and for audiences to stay patient as facts and decisions continue to unfold. And the speakers remind viewers that public narratives can shift quickly, but real resolution takes time, evidence, and due process. And this reminder brings the focus back to the idea that the next chapter of the story may change everything in ways that no one can fully predict right now. And the final message encourages viewers to stay engaged, thoughtful, and open to new developments as facts come out, because the outcome of this case could influence how similar situations are viewed, handled, and resolved in the future, leaving the audience with a sense of anticipation and a reason to keep watching for what comes next.